Mr. Badge-Pie, we believe that the client who hired you to follow Jane is Tina Watersford. Would she be the wife of Nigel Watersford, member of the House of Commons?
How did you... Oh, forget it. Yes, I was working for her. Please excuse me. I'm a busy man.
I think Inspector Crimmins and I should pay a visit to Mrs. Watersford and find out why she hired Mr. Badge-Pie. She lives in a place called Wellinghall. Sounds very upscale.
May I help you?
Inspector Crimmins of Scotland Yard, Mrs. Watersford, and this is Mrs. Jessica Fletcher. You've heard, no doubt, of the murder of Miss Jane Drury?
Of course. Who hasn't?
We discovered that she was being followed by a private investigator named Giles Badge-Pie.
Is that so?
Yes, we paid Mr. Badge-Pie a visit and found out that the person who hired him was you, Mrs. Watersford.
Is that true?
Yes, it's true. I suspected that my husband was having an affair, so I hired Giles to find out more.
Was any evidence found to confirm your suspicions?
No.
Do you mind if we have a look round?
Not at all.
How do you explain this theater program, Mrs. Watersford? Jane, meet me at 2 p.m.?
If you must know, Giles brought that to me and promised to provide me with the pictures of Jane and Nigel together next, but then Jane was killed.
So you don't know for sure what the meeting was about?
No, but I'm not an idiot, Mrs. Fletcher. Please excuse me. This has all been a bit much for me.
Mr. Watersford certainly didn't let on that he knew Jane that well the first time we spoke with him.
Typical politician. We'll see what he has to say for himself now. Mr. Watersford, may we have a minute?
More questions, Inspector. I told you I barely knew the unfortunate Miss Drury.
If that's true, Why did you write your office address and a time across one of the playbills from Jane's performance?
I told you, I wanted to buy some tickets for some friends, but the show was sold out for months. When she didn't respond to my letter, I asked her in person. She wrote down my address and agreed to have some tickets delivered then. Unfortunately, the tickets never arrived.
I see. Do you mind if we have a look around?
I've got nothing to hide.
Nigel lied when he said that the earring belonged to his wife. It matches the one Jane was wearing when we found her body.
My guess is he lied about that program note as well. Perhaps we can discover more about Jane's relationship with Mr. Watersford at her dressing room.
I'll call Emma to meet us there. I'm glad to help, but I'm not sure what we're looking for.
Something that reveals Miss Drury's relationship with Mr. Watersford.
Or at least something that can provide a new lead.
What's going on here?
Just having another look around the scene of the crime, Mr. Winslow.
Why were you insisting that Jane sign a contract with such unfavorable terms for her?
Look, I had no choice. The Milton isn't doing very well financially. I had to try and cut expenses.
Did the negotiations ever get heated?
At times, I suppose. Jane and I were used to fighting. We used to be married, after all.
I'll be taking the contract with me.
How long is this dressing room going to be sealed, Inspector? I'd like to be able to tell the theatre's charwoman when she can clean up the room for a new occupant.
The theater employs a regular cleaning lady.
Yes, she comes every night, around 9 p.m.
So Jane must have been killed sometime after 9 p.m., but before we arrived at 11 p.m.
That does narrow it down.
Giles Badgepie admitted that he was following Jane. I wonder if he has an alibi for that time.
Agreed. Let's pay him another visit tomorrow. The office is unlocked, but no one's here. Perhaps Mr. Badgepie stepped out.
With the rain coming down like it is, I'm sure he'll hurry back.
What are you people doing here?
We just had a few questions for you, Mr. Badgepie, such as where you were 2 nights ago between the hours of 9 and 11 p.m.
I was in a pub down on Exeter Street, waiting to meet with a client, but he never showed.
Mr. Badgepie, I noticed your wet footprints matched the ones we found in Jane's dressing room the night she was killed.
So I was in her dressing room that night. I thought I'd find more evidence of her affair with Nigel Watersford, but she was already dead when I got there.
A likely story. I'm placing you under arrest for Jane Drury's murder.
You've got the wrong man, Crimmins. This is bigger than any of us.
My men will take Mr. Badgepie down to the yard for questioning. In the meantime, would you care to accompany me to Welling Hall? Mrs. Watersford will want to know what happened to her private investigator.
I'd be happy to.
Please do come in. Is there any news on the murder?
The private investigator you hired has been arrested on suspicion of the murder of Miss Drury.
He has.
He mentioned something concerning your husband's affair. He said that it was bigger than any of us.
Do you have any idea what he meant by that?
None at all.
Mr. Badgepie took a picture of Jane alone on the street, carrying an attaché case. Does it look familiar to you at all?
It resembles one my husband has, but I can't say for sure. He has so many, you see. You're welcome to look around and see if you can find it here.
The briefcase in the photograph isn't here. Perhaps Jane took it from Mr. Waterford's office. I'm beginning to wonder if there was something in it that could have gotten Jane killed.
If it belonged to Mr. Watersford, he would be the one to ask about its contents. Mr. Watersford, I think it's time for you to come clean about your relationship with Miss Drury, and about a certain attaché case of yours that may have gone missing.
All right. I'd been carrying on an affair with Jane Drury since meeting her backstage. I fell head over heels for her.